month, we provide public comment. At our first meeting each month, we set aside some time to allow public comment for our citizens or anyone wanting to address the board. Each speaker is given 3 minutes in which to comment. Speakers are expected to be civil and respectful to the board in their language and presentation. It is the board's practice not to respond or engage in conversations with anyone who speaks in order to give the speaker the full amount of time to voice their concerns. If you raise a matter you would like addressed either by the board or by the town staff, please leave your name and contact information with the town clerk, and someone will contact you. Please understand that the state law prohibits us from discussing employee personnel matters with you. With that, we do have one person that has signed up this evening, and it's Billy White.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, the town board, officers, dignitaries, citizens. I'm here tonight to have a complaint about fireworks. And about the fireworks situation is that I was talking to my insurance people and everything, and every year, you know, that we shoot fireworks, but it's okay if it's a neighborhood. But it's got to the place that, you know, we got children coming from several different cities coming in the community, and it's getting to be so crowded, and they're in the yard, and you tell them to leave, they get attitude, you know, like it's their yard. And I think it's time to put a stop to it, because, you know, the citizens are getting angry about it, and also the insurance company said that if the houses or something catch on fire, or the grass or something, that they would not pay for it, because fireworks were illegal and everything. And some lady came by the last time and said, well, the mayor said now that we can shoot firecrackers and this and that. My wife said, well, where's the paper? Because I know that the mayor told you, you know, you have a paper, you know, where's the paper? And so she didn't have the paper, so I knew she was lying. And so I'd like to bring it before the board tonight, so you can get with the fire department or whoever, and talk to them about this, because it's really getting out of hand. And I hate to see anyone lose their home, you know, a forest fire, because we got a lot of woods around there and everything, and I had to put out a little small area where one of these sparklers had got on the grass. It's been so dry, and I put it out, and a lot of kids from different places, they are rude, and you don't want to have to get into it with nobody about their children, because they have raised. And I just wanted to bring that to the board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the Town Mooresville Board of Commissioners August 3rd, 2020 board meeting. At this time, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask if you could please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father, we pray for wisdom today. We pray that you'd help us to make decisions that are pleasing to you. And Father, that you would guide every heart and every thought. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, I want to direct your attention to adjustments to the agenda. Under the consent agenda, there will be an addition for AE. It's a consent item. For AE is being added, and this is consider authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract with Idaho County to allow for reimbursement in an amount up to $984,711.40 for allowable related COVID-19 expenditures. Current expenditures in the amount of $119,260.15 have been submitted to Lauderdale County, which will be covered under this agreement, and which now includes the second round of CARES Act funding. Staff is working to identify future expenditures. Commissioners, regarding the regular agenda item 5C will be removed. That's the text amendment to be considered. That agenda item is being removed. Regular agenda item 5J is being amended. It is a corrected amount for the lift maintenance expansion project. The correct amount is $1,820,500. Additionally, in the closed session, under consultant attorney, we'll be adding Magnolia Properties Group, Inc. versus Town of Mooresville. Commissioners, with those adjustments to the agenda, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda and regular agenda as amended and presented. Mr. Compton's made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Houston. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners, I'm going to direct your attention to agenda item number 5A. This is a public hearing to consider a rezoning request from William Nelling to rezone a portion of property on Haney Drive. At this time, the chair will open the public hearing. I recognize Mr. Wilson.
Good evening. So this evening, before you, we have a rezoning request by Mr. Downing to change partial rezoning. It's probably split zoned R2 residential and general industrial, and the applicant wishes to unify the two zoning districts to be general industrial. You can see on the map here where it is in town. Property is 12.75 acres. It is on Haney Drive. It is currently vacant. Access is straight down Haney Drive, which is a public road. This property is outside the town's corporate limits, but is within the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ. As I mentioned, you can see on your screen, the southern half of the property, or 85% of the property that's blue, is general industrial today. The top corner, which is the yellow, is residential R2. So this is how the property sits today as far as zoning wise. The request is to make the entire property general industrial, so it would only be changing this top portion of the property in question. And general industrial, of course, is an industrial district. By right uses include manufacturing, warehousing, self-storage, those sorts of things. The residential R2 district, which is to the north, is, as we've discussed several times, residential in nature, 2 dwelling units, an acre maximum density, single-family homes, low-density development for those areas. Our One Mooresville plan, future land use characterization is neighborhood residential. So this looks for interconnected residences, single-family home, townhome. The One Mooresville plan pages are in the packet as well as on the screen to look at the character intent of the neighborhood residential. Assuming this application was approved this evening, the next steps for the applicant would be working with staff for concept plan. This is a conventional zoning, so no concept plan is associated with this request this evening. Working with town staff to do their concept plan and working with the TRC on that, as well as requesting utility extension from the board and annexation requests, because again, this is not within our corporate limits. And then of course, all land disturbance permitting and building permitting from the county. So during the planning board meeting, we did have one citizen speak against the petition, and staff did recommend approval of the project. We feel that it's compatible with the land use in the area. Although it is not compatible with the One Mooresville plan. Obviously, the future land use designation of neighborhood residential is not keeping with industrial. Looking at the One Mooresville plan in this general area, there are several other inconsistencies that we believe exist, so want to look at that in a little more depth. Not just this one parcel, but a couple of other parcels as well. Planning board did recommend approval of this request with a 5-1 vote. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions from Mr. Wilson, Commissioners? Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wilson, in looking at this, I notice it is adjacent to residential, as you laid out there, R2 by right uses. So I know there's a concept plan coming. I would just ask that we do thoughtful planning around that. We have situations where we've had good businesses be corporately responsible and engage the community, where there's been industrial that has been close to residential. And so I would hope that we don't get ourselves in that situation where whatever that concept plan is, doesn't really play well as a community partner with the residential that's there.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, is the applicant here and think Mr. Steve?
Yes.
Good evening, and thank you for hearing my request tonight. I think Mr. Wilson did a great job of describing everything, so I'm here to answer any questions if you may have some.
Any questions for the applicant, Commissioners? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and open up for public comment and then invite you back based on any public comment if you'd like to respond.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your time. I'm going to open up for public comment. Anyone who would like to comment on this agenda item, you're welcome to do so at this time. Anyone from the public wish to come forward? We allow 3 minutes for public comment. Hearing none, the chair can go ahead and close the public hearing. The chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Houston's made a motion. Commissioner Compton seconded that motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries and the rezoning request has been approved, and this will require a statement of reasonableness and compliance. Commissioner Houston.
Zoning amendment is approved and is ready for public interest because rezoned to remove split zoning on the property and is compatible with the new back plan.
Commissioner Houston's offered up a statement of reasonableness and compliance. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Commissioner Whittington, thank you. Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Statement of reasonableness and compliance passes as well. And yes, Ms. Crawford?
There's a second part to this because it is inconsistent with the plan. We'll just need a second statement that it's also deemed an amendment to the plan.
So I'll turn to Commissioner Houston, if you could also add the second, in addition, the other statement to go along with this.
In addition to approving the zoning amendment, this approval is also deemed as an amendment to the town Mooresville comprehensive plan. The change in conditions, the town board has taken into account and amended the zoning ordinance to meet the development needs of the community are as follows. The zoning is consistent with industrial land use in the area and will remove a split zoning on the property.
Thank you, Commissioner Houston. Is there a second on that statement? Commissioner Compton. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Statement is approved. And the rezoning request has been approved. Commissioners, I'm going to direct your attention to agenda item 5D. This is to consider a rezoning request for Dr. Goodall for properties located at 459 Broad School Road. At this time, the chair will open the public hearing. Recognize Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. So before you this evening is another conventional rezoning request for property at 459 Broad School Road. As you can see on the overview map, this property is on the western side of town, just west of I-77. It is requested to go from residential R2 to corridor mixed use. The property is just a little bit over 6 acres. It is located directly on Broadley School Road. As you can see on on the map on the screen. This property just to the, a little bit to the northwest is the Lowe's Foods corner with Williamson Road coming in just a little bit further west of this area. Current use is single-family residential. There's currently one house on the property today. That is the structure you see here on the eastern side. The rest of it's open field. It is directly on Raleigh School Road, and this property is also located outside of our corporate limits and within the ETJ or extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town. The property is currently zoned residential R2. Again, as we just touched on in the previous zoning, this is low-density residential designation, up to 2 units an acre, single-family home, duplex, manufactured home, those uses. The future land use map and the one Mooresville plan does show this as mixed-use corridor. So that is an area designed to extend our nodes, our concentration areas of development, looking really to mix retail, office, some commercial uses, medical office. It is residential, it's 4 to 16 units an acre in the one Mooresville plan. Again, in your packet, you have the sheets from the one Mooresville plan really going into depth about this character and intent of this future land use. So next steps with this, assuming it would be approved, would be moving forward again with the concept plan with staff. That's all town departments involved in the plan review process with the TRC. And then utility extension request and annexation request with the board, as well as all permitting with the county for land disturbance and building permitting to move forward. During the planning board meeting, we had no citizens come speak for or against this matter. Staff did recommend approval as it is consistent with the one Mooresville plan that did fit in with the overall character and land use, current use of the area in which it's located. Planning board did recommend unanimous approval of this with a 6-0 vote. Answer any questions?
Comments or questions, Commissioners, from Mr. Wilson? Commissioner Compton?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wilson, I think Commissioner Hawes, on earlier that day, asked a question regarding the curb cut or driveway cut or something like that. Could you summarize the results of that? Because I know you said something out, but you were going to find out something after Friday's briefing regarding this matter. So could you just summarize the results of that, please?
Yes, sir, and thank you for reminding me about that. So as you can see, the property on our, on the aerial has one driveway. So currently, Brawley School, of course, is a median, so it's currently right in, right out. Speaking with DOT, the question was brought up, how many access points could be on this property? What does it look like with a median break or not? And today, as it sits, so any future subdivision, the DOT, of course, can't give us a hard and fast 100% answer, because it would really depend on the development. But shared driveway, single access point into the parcel, median break would not be advisable or approvable by them at this time. Our small area plan for Brawley School Road does show the property further southwest of this being potential development, and at such time there'd be some public road realignment potentially along with that, which may warrant a median break somewhere on Brawley School, but nowhere in the near future and not just for this one property. So it would be single access point if this was developed a little bit to the west. We would work with them to relocate that entrance and have a shared access to only have one entrance into Brawley, onto Brawley School, and it would be right in, right out.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, I would like to invite the applicant forward if they'd like to present the board.
Hello, I'm Harsh Govil, and I'm here just to answer any questions from the board, and I thank you for the opportunity to have me come here and answer any of your questions. I don't have any specific concept plan at this point in time, but the plan is to just build a medical office building there, and I'll be willing to answer any questions you have.
Comments or questions, Commissioners, for the applicant? Hearing none at this time, I'm going to open up for public comment, and we'll invite you back if there's some public comment that you'd like to respond back to.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'm going to invite you to come forward if you'd like to make a comment on this agenda item. You're certainly welcome to at this time. Anyone from the public? Hearing none, the chair will close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the rezoning request from Dr. Govil for property located at 459 Mooresville Road.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make that motion, that we approve the rezoning request from Dr. Horace Scoble for property located at 459 Mooresville Road to go from single family R2 to affordable mixed use.
Commissioner Pauls made the motion, is there a second? Second by Commissioner West, discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries and the rezoning request has been approved. At this time, the chair will entertain a statement of reasonableness and compliance. Mr. Pauls?
The zoning amendment is approved and is consistent with the town of Mooresville comprehensive plan and is reasonable and in the public interest because the rezoning is consistent with the character of the mixed-use corridor designation of the land use plan, and the rezoning is in keeping with the intended progression of the public school corridor.
Mr. Pauls has offered up the statement, is there a second? Second by Commissioner West, discussion on the statement. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The statement is approved as well. Commissioners, I want to direct your attention to agenda item 5D. This will be a public hearing regarding this is a request for utility services, and at this time I'll recognize Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Before you, we have 3 different utility extension requests tonight. The first one is 2221 Charlotte Highway. This is for property that does have a concept plan that the technical review committee of the town has reviewed for single-family home development, just over 10 acres in size. They're proposing 35 single-family units. If, assuming this would be approved and did move forward, that would come before you at a later time. But all the town departments that reviewed this, utilities, fire, police, public works, finance, and planning, no issues were raised regarding extension of the public utilities in this area. The property is in the town's tiered growth map, tier 1, and you can see on the screen here, tier 1 is the green. There are public utilities nearby. Just south of this is Sequoia Forest development that had been previously annexed into the town and developed. I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Any comments or questions from Mr. Wilson, Commissioner Pauls?
Mr. Wilson, is this going to join the project that we approved earlier this year? I mean, it feels like we're kind of, this development's piecemeal, or is it separate development, or what's going on out there? Because I see another piece of property that has a request for, to be heard on the planning board agenda in the same vicinity. So what's really going on? What's the story?
Yes, ma'am. That's the same piece that you saw coming up for a planning board. It is Sequoia Forest developing, and this is their next phase of residential development moving north.
So how many units are going to be total all of this piecemeal together? Because, then you hear 30 units, okay, that's not too bad, and then another 30, and another 30. Where are we going with this? Is this all of a sudden going to be a 300 unit development that's pieced together, or what's going on?
I do not know previous approval numbers. I can find that out.
Additional comments or questions for Mr. Wilson, Commissioners? Is the applicant here as well? If they'd like to answer any questions? Commissioners, the chair will entertain a motion. Is there, if there's not a motion to approve, is there a motion to deny? Commissioner West has made a motion to deny the utility extension request. Is there a second? Commissioner Dean will make the second. Discussion on the motion to deny the request. Mr. Dingler.
Maybe we could get some more information before we make that decision, where I'm at.
request is denied this evening, how long before the applicant can come back and request?
I'm honestly not sure. It could be, we don't have a waiting time for it. I don't know that I've seen anything.
I just want to give the commissioners, because if you do get the information you're looking for from staff, and then they're not allowed to come forward for a certain amount of time, I just wanted to, but we do have a motion in a second.
One option too, if the board needs additional information, you could withdraw the previous motion and make a motion to continue the matter. That is an option that you have as well. The applicant to come and answer any questions.
Is that something that commissioners would agree to? Okay, Mr. West, could you amend your motion, withdraw your motion?
Yeah, I will rescind that motion, based on the fact that I think we all have a little bit more information, so I'd like to do I was planning on doing it. So I will rescind that and make a motion that we continue.
We should set a date. I think the next meeting, September 8th, I believe.
Is that agreeable, September 8th? So Commissioner West has made a motion, he's rescinded his first motion. You're agreeable with that, Commissioner Dingler? And we're gonna continue this discussion on this agenda item, and it'll be brought back before the board on September 8th. And between now and then, the board will have all the information it needs to make a decision. Is that agreeable? So, Commissioner West has made the motion, Commissioner Dingler, would you second that? All right, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Mr. Wilson, we have you up there for agenda item 5D, and this is another utility services request for water only.
Yes, sir. This is for a property located at 148 Shinnville Road, and this is for water only, as you mentioned. Currently, there's a well. It serves a single-family home. The property is 0.56 acres, so it's one single parcel with one home on the property, and the well is drying up. So that's why it's a water-only request. Again, no town department has any issues with providing water to this property. This is located in the Tier 2 growth area of our tiered growth map, which is the utility growth area. You can see the green, again, it's Tier 1, which is our most likely to grow area, and it's immediately adjacent to this property. The water line is right next to the property. You can see this, it's supposed to be blue, but I think it's this plain old gray line. Just to the north of the property is the water line that the town owns currently on the property. And the future land use is neighborhood residential, so this house would stay as a house with just water connection. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Mr. Claus?
Just for clarification, the applicant is applying for annexation to.
Yes, so, yes, ma'am, I should have said that. Thank you. With the previous one, all three of the utility extension requests before you this evening, all applicants have applied for annexation as well. As part of our process, if you want utilities extended, the town requires you to put in an annexation application so that you can eventually become part of the corporate limits of the town. So this property does have all their annexation application.
Additional comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Houston's made the motion to approve the utility request for water only, and Commissioner Whittington has seconded that motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5F. Mr. Wilson, you have one last utility request.
Yes, sir. So this is at 220 East Waterlynn Road. This was an emergency connection earlier this year. Again, no issues. This is also water only, so no issues were expressed by any town department. This is also located in the Tier 1 growth area for the town. Again, you can see the green. Our water line is directly across the street on Waterlynn from the property. It is once again, single family home on 0.4 acres, so one single lot. Again, for this one, we'd have to answer any questions you may have on this.
Comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Dingler's made a motion to approve the request for utility services, water only, for Brian Bruce for property located at 220 Waterlynn Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Walls, discussion of the motion. Hearing none, all those, Mr. Walls?
I guess there's a question, and Commissioner Houston asked this on Friday. Is there a different rate for just water-only customer that's in the town?
From what I understand, the rate is in town versus out of town, not only water, but I do believe Allison, that is correct? Okay, yes, ma'am. It is in town versus out of town, not just water.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Commissioners, we're going to bring up Mr. Young for agenda item 5G. This is a work professional services contract. On the project here in Louisville.
Mayor, I know you couldn't see me smiling, but I was underneath my mask, so, thank you. So this is, do we have it? Okay, thank you, sorry. So this is a Water Professional Services contract. This is to RK&K, so kind of give you a brief history on the project. Town received the bill grant for the East West Connector Phase 1 back in November of last year. So that was roughly $13.7 million in federal money for roughly a $21 million project. Last board meeting, which is in July, the town board did approve our 2 agreements that go along with this project. One of those, the USDOT or FH78 agreement, that's actually received the funds. And then the second agreement was the NCDOT agreement, which they will act as a pass-through agency for the town. So the funds will come through them. So we are actually still awaiting the final agreement from the USDOT. I got some, actually talked to them last week. I think it was on Thursday prior to board briefing on Friday. Still expecting that agreement to be here any day. But we're moving on and getting our professional services contract in place. So that is tonight. We did pre-qualify, the town staff worked on pre-qualification through an RFLOI process. That is a request for letters of interest. We ended up having about 8, I believe, apply for that. We ended up interviewing 3. RK&K was our top ranked team, and they have provided us a proposal that we're looking at tonight. It is split into 2 parts. Just want to point that out. It's roughly a $1.7 million proposal. One of the parts of the design, which is roughly $1.6 million for RK&K. The other one, that's the lump sum cost. The other one is right away, which is the cost plus. It's actually one of their subs, so it's the same contract. It'll be through the same people. It's just split into 2 parts, and that's $121,000. That's actually PBS, which is Professional Property Services here. Actually, we'll pay more for the time, down in Mooresville, very long listing. So. Excited to move this forward. We're ready for the design phase. We had functional design, which you can see on the right-hand side in blue, and we'll start to see this develop. We had a couple of other items come up during the proposal and pre-proposal meetings. For example, we are going to have to include closures of our downtown streets that exist, which is Catawba Avenue and Walnut Street. I believe the commissioners voted on that a couple of months ago. So those will be included in this plan as well. So it'll be the plan for them closing. And then there were 3 private right-of-ways along the corridor there on Mecklenburg Highway. But tonight, we're looking at that proposal for $1,720,961.71, along with budget amendments that will go along with that.
Comments or questions for Mr. Young? No? It's awesome. Mr. Young, I know you're happy.
I am excited. So
Yes, I'm excited.
I know it's like it is exciting. So this project is quick. We're going to see a lot develop very quickly. So it's we have to have the money in place, authorization to construct what they call ABC by September of next year. It has been a long process. I've got to be honest, and we know that. When we're getting federal dollars, and $13.7 million is nothing to shake a stick at. So it's a lot of money. And so we are excited. we're looking forward to getting this project going. I know the folks in the area, we met with them, talking to them now as well. And then looking forward to that next phase as well. So it's always looking for the next step. So it is exciting to get this moving.
So you are looking for an approval to award a contract and the approval of the project ordinance amendments?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Mayor, I have a question.
Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. Mr. Young, you mentioned the railroad crossings being closed. What's the timeline on that? Any idea?
They are not required to be closed for the agreement until this one is actually open. So this project is assumed that we get started with construction at the end of next year, which I actually think is probably going to be closer to the first part of 2022. You're looking at a 2-year time frame after that, so you're looking somewhere in the 2024, maybe spring 2024 range before you have to close it.
Because probably most people don't know Walnut Street exists across the tracks. I think y'all did a study, it's like 20 cars a day or something, got some minimal figure. But Catawba's a little bit different, since the FEDMC building's right there, and that'd just be a little bit of education for some of those folks.
Yeah.
We got time for that.
Great point, and we are looking to make that a pedestrian crossing. We included in our, that crossing agreement, the draft crossing agreement, actually. So the agreement would include us allowing the town to move forward with pedestrian crossing as well. Not only there, but actually in all the other, cross sections through there. I think Commissioner Dingler and maybe another commissioner have asked that a couple of times along that corridor. So we currently have a few pedestrian crossings, but like Moore Avenue is another good example. So we included that in here as well, so we would have the ability to do that pedestrian crossing. That's part of that project.
Thank you, Commissioner Compton. So the chair will entertain a motion, Commissioner Quarles.
Sure. So I can read all this too?
Maybe just award contract and approval of the project.
Make a motion to award the contract and the ordinance,
And approval of the project ordinance amendments.
and approval of the project ordinance amendments. Someone says on my page, I'm sorry.
So Commissioner Quarles has made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dingler, discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we're going to bring up Ms. Kraft for agenda item 5H, and this is a award of contract as well.
I don't have one. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, so normally I don't have this many people watching, so I'm kind of excited about the presentation contract. But this evening before you, we're asking that you consider awarding a construction contract to Carolina Grading Utilities for an amount not to exceed $805,612.10. And this is for rehabilitation of 2 of the town's pump stations, for Reeds Creek and South Iredell lift stations. We will be sandblasting and recoating the wet wells at both of those stations, and then also adding an automatic bar string at the South Iredell lift station. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Comments or questions for this matter? Commissioner Houston.
Mr. Kraft, just clarity, where is South Iredell building? Never heard that.
Sure. South Iredell is, basically it backs up to the Pecan Hills subdivision. So that receives flow from a number of our industrial customers, also receives flow that we receive from Troutman. It's a fairly substantial station, and with having the industrial customers, it really, there's a lot of wear and tear on it for the type of sewage that comes to it.
Additional comments or questions for Ms. Kraft? Hearing none, Commissioner Quarles?
Is this the South Iredell with the screening, is this the one that presently is a very manual process that this upgrade will take them to more automated?
That is correct. Currently, our staff has to go to that pump station. I believe that's one of the ones that's once a day, and manually remove debris, things that are incorrectly flushed down the toilet and on other locations, and manually remove that so that it doesn't clog the pumps. And this will be something that will relieve them from that duty.
That's good news.
Chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Houston has made a motion to approve awarding the contract, construction contract to Carolina Related Utilities in the amount of $805,612.10. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Compton. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Commissioners, we have Ms. Hopkins up here. She's going to discuss agenda item number 5I. This is in regards to reimbursement resolution, budget amendments, transfer funds.
Good evening. The agenda item tonight in front of you is to consider approving a resolution for the town with the intent to reimburse themselves for the fleet project once the anticipated bonds are sold in December. The second item will be approving a budget amendment appropriating fund balance in the amount of $1,920,436 to establish the project ordinance to approve the contract for the fleet maintenance expansion. Once the bonds are sold in December, the funds will be replaced to the general fund. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions from Ms. Hopkins? Hearing none, Commissioners, you'll see that for actions recommended, there's 3 separate actions. So the Chair will entertain a motion for the first action, and if you could read that first one.
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner West?
I make a motion that we approve a resolution declaring the intent of the town of Mooresville to reimburse itself for capital expenditures incurred in connection with the fleet maintenance building expansion project from the proceeds of tax-exempt obligations.
Commissioner West has made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Houston. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. The Chair will entertain a second motion.
Mayor,
Commissioner Compton.
make a motion to approve a budget amendment amount of $1,920,436 to transfer funds from the general fund appropriate reserve to the general capital projects fund, fleet maintenance building expansion project ordinance, to temporarily cover the fleet maintenance building expansion construction costs. Funds will be recovered when the town receives proceeds from the sale of tax-exempt obligations.
Mr. Compton's made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dingler. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. And finally, the Chair will entertain a third motion for this item. Commissioner Williamson?
Amendment to establish the fleet maintenance building expansion project ordinance.
Commissioner Williamson's made a motion to approve the amended the project ordinance. Commissioner Houston? Make the second on that motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hopkins.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we'll have our final agenda item this evening. It's 5J. Mr. Wyckoff is going to give us an update on facilities.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This last item is in step with what the talk just went over with you. It's considering award of contract to Encompass Building Group for the construction of the fleet maintenance building project in the amount of $1,820,500. I'm going to go through the presentation here that I have laid out that kind of goes into more detail on what the project covers. What you're looking at here is the north elevation, which is the rear of the building, and you can see the area that's going to be expanded, and I'll get to that more in a bit. I'd like to start though with some project background and the timeline that we're going to be working with here that's got us to this point. I believe you all on the board are fairly well versed in the expansion needs here. It's really about the growth of the town and the facility here. Occupancy of the facility was in 2011, and obviously the town has grown quite a bit there, and obviously the need for our fleet maintenance team has grown quite a bit as well. We started with some preliminary concepts in 2017 and 18, and we did full design in 2019. That process began with an RFQ for the design service, and we selected to go with Adams and Associates to design the project. We completed full design last year, and the project was sent for permit in March of last year. I'm sorry, in 2020, this year, excuse me, last fiscal year. We received bids June 18th, and the project was bid, as you can see in this picture here, this project was bid with two alternates. One was the north side expansion, which is the small engine repair, as well as the west side area here, which was the small duty expansion, as well, the light duty expansion. What we're asking you tonight is that we approve base bid and alternate one. That low bidder would be Encompass Building Group, and the amount for those projects would be, the whole project would be $1,820,500. To expand a little bit on the components of the project, it is an expansion of the heavy-duty bay. That's part of the base bid. It's an additional 2,200 square feet on the rear of the building. If you look at this isometric drawing here, that area in red is what will be coming off of the building and expanded out further. The point of that is to allow for the team to really work on more than one piece of heavy-duty equipment there. For example, if a fire truck or sanitation truck was in the bay and they needed to pull another one in to work on it, right now they could not without that additional space. There is also an additional 1,080 square feet for a small engine mechanic. That position was hired last year by the town, and its space that it currently occupies was the tire bay. So if you look at this drawing below the isometric, that is a eastern elevation of the building, and you can see where this bay is here, that would be the new small engine repair, and this space here is where the rest of the heavy duty would expand to. In addition to those pieces, in the base bid is an extra 18 parking spaces out on front, that's next to 21. And if any of you have been to our facility, you know that parking has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller over the years. The town has expanded, and the amount of employees at that facility has expanded as well. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the critical information here. We are asking that you approve base bid and alternate one. That's the green and blue areas here highlighted on the plan, as well as the 18 additional parking spaces. The low bidder for the project was Encompass Building Group. It will be a 360-day construction, and as Ms. Hockett explained, it will be initially funded through the general fund and reimbursed by the bond if approved.
Comments or questions, Commissioners? Hearing none, the chair will recognize Commissioner Houston.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to consider awarding the contract to Building Group Inc. for the construction of fleet maintenance expansion project in the amount of $1,830,500. Oh, I'm sorry, the new amount is $1,820,500. Thank you, correction.
Thank you, Commissioner Houston has made the motion, and again, just to confirm, that's $1,820,500 for this contract. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner West. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Mr. Heeman, love to hear from you and manager's report.
Mayor and Commissioners, glad to be here today. I'd like to report a few things from our departments. I'll start with the COVID-19 data. You can see we've jumped up to 669 cases in the southern part. That's our two zip codes, 28115 and 117. Statesville still running slightly ahead of us there. But that's our tally for this week. A few department updates. Engineering, West Wilson project improvements. Bid documents, final plans are complete on that. Right-of-way purchases remaining are underway, and we have started utility relocations. You may have gotten stopped in traffic for that one already. I have, but it's moving quite well. Construction expected to begin in the fall of 2020, and that one may actually move up a little bit. John, is that correct? Potentially?
That would actually be
Delayed a little bit.
pushing mobility.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Highway 115 and 150 intersection, final inspections complete. Faith Road, that one has been delayed. We've contacted that contractor a few times. Cedar and Edgemore, we've done some culvert replacements there, are getting ready to. We've completed design on those, and those will be constructed in 2021. Maple and Woodbury, got some additional culvert replacements on the way there. We've started working on easement purchases and expect to construct that in 2021. Fire rescue, you can see we continue to maintain a really good average response time. It's great to see that we filled some vacancies in fire as well. And I know our team is actually, I think we've got another slide on that in a minute. We've actually sent some of our team down east to help with the storms, and I'll talk about that in a second. Mooresville Police Department calls for service increased 12.9% from last month. I would like to point out that domestic violence is up. That's something we expected with the COVID-19 and what we've heard here recently. We've had 12 auto break-ins involving 20 vehicles in July. And we did have, actually last night, an officer involved shooting on Heritage Place, and unfortunately there was one fatality. Our officers responded to a domestic incident where an assault had been reported. So our officers are fine, but they did end up shooting a suspect that pulled a gun, and investigation is underway per SBI protocol. Circulation in the library has been doing quite well. Look at the difference between May and June. I guess people have figured out how to do the call-in for books. Digital circulation is also up tremendously, and we're now fine-free, started July 1st. We've had a lot of rounds of golf played in the last month, and revenue has been very good. Parks and Recreation continues to do daily camp. I know it's been a little difficult with social distancing, but they've done a great job adapting to that, and our hats off to them. I would also like to point out, I know that a few commissioners have received calls maybe about this, that we still are allowed to have non-contact ball tournaments and meet COVID-19 restrictions. And we've had some that are going on. I know people see tournaments going on, but non-contact sports, baseball, softball, are still being allowed. We'd just like to make sure the public knows that. Public Works had a very busy month. You can see the tonnage there. We delivered a lot of rollout containers, 136. We had 68 new residents and replaced 34 existing cans. And the new cans, I'll point out, have the M logo on them. They're replacing the ones with the old seal. Northside Booster Pump Station construction continues. We've also got a new above-ground diesel storage tank at the wastewater treatment plant. And due to the hot weather, that tank's being used because of load requirements and load shading. So the electric is being diverted over to diesel use. And the emergency repair of the raw water lines, you'll recall we brought this one to you some time back off Bluefield Road, very important large lines. that project is complete. So a few other things, 2 of the 4 smart lights are in for the block where we have Epic Chop House. The design has been, will begin soon on the second concept that you approved for the Moore Avenue project. And a few quick position updates. Deputy Finance Director has been posted. Deputy HR Director, we have 37 applicants so far. In the Planner 1 position, we have 108 applicants that received and told Danny everybody wants to work for Danny. So his reputation is already out there. I do think we've made some progress on that and have an applicant that we've made an offer to, and we expect to hopefully wrap that up soon. We have 11 vacancies in the police department and 5 conditional offers out there, so we'll soon be down hopefully to 6 positions there. Chief tells me that we're going to make some progress on those 6 that we've talked to some candidates at BLET and have some good candidates coming forward on that next round beyond these 5. Telecommunicators, we have 4 candidates for the 4 vacancies there too, and we're working through that process. The Census 2020, if you go down Foxfield Park Drive, you'll see I have my sign now. We have additional signs that you can put out as well. We've heard the comments from Marion about how much that means to the community when things are looked at for federal funding based on population. So very important to get those signs out and make sure everybody is counted. We do have a deployment update. 14 members of our fire rescue swift water team are deployed to Elizabethtown. When Chief Deaton was on this morning for our COVID call, he was in the middle of a warehouse full of folks with a lot of activity around him. He said it was very hot and sticky there, so we do appreciate him going to serve folks in eastern North Carolina that are expected to be impacted by the storm. Also like to point out that our TI Network Administrator, Jeff Martin, is on site in Kinston. Brotherton says this is the second time I think that he's been called to do this, which is quite an honor, quite frankly, to oversee the technology support team for the state's hurricane response. So we appreciate his service as well. And we've got a short video that, will it come up on this? Okay.
Properly working water and sewer services at your home can be taken for granted, but given enough time, plumbing problems can develop. One of the worst problems is a sewer backup. If you experience a sewer backup, please make Mooresville Public Utilities your first call.
Often sewer backups can cause something to get stuck into the pipe leaking your house, such as paper towels, grease, or even tree roots. The town has equipment that can usually temporarily remove the blockage while you time to contact the plumber during normal business hours if necessary.
Often we can help troubleshoot the cause of the backup, potentially saving you repair costs. Remember, Mooresville Public Utilities are available and on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist you.
I'd like to thank all of our folks that worked on that video. Just to remind people that we are on call 24/7. So if folks have issues related to sewer backup, certainly to call us, and we'll send out our back truck and see what we can do to assist. So.
Comments, questions from Mr. Healy? Commissioner Claus?
In regards to utilities, what do we suggest the public call? What number? If it's after hours, then call.
It's that number that was on the video there. Yeah. And you know, that brings up another great point. We are working on.
Properly working water and sewer services at your home can be taken for granted.
Such as paper towels, grease, or even tree roots. The town has equipment that can remove and blockage monitoring.
It is on the website.
During open business hours if necessary.
Often when you come to.
Number's gonna pop up in just a second.
Potentially saving you in repair costs. Remember, Mooresville Public Utilities are available and on call, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist you.
That emergency number is on the website. We are talking about doing some magnets that have a number of departmental numbers on it, and we will include that emergency line on there as well, so that folks could have those numbers on refrigerator, so, thank you.
Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to mention, Mr. Henry mentioned, Mr. Martin's in Kinston. I'd say Battalion Chief Jamie Barrier is also in Kinston at the Communications Center, he's over at Communications for the eastern part of the state. And he's also has worked with the Secret Service for the past political convention in Charlotte. He's already met with them for the upcoming in a couple of weeks convention, a meeting, whatever we're having in Charlotte. So Chief Barrier will be there working with the federal government and here the state government, because he is at Wiz on Communications, so he's working with us all the radio business. So, thank you.
It certainly is.
Thank you, Commissioner Compton. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Healy? Okay. Hearing none, Commissioners, is there any new business you'd like to consider this evening? Hearing none, Commissioners, we'll be going into closed session to consult with the consultant attorney under GS 143-318-11A3. There's two items, Town of Cornelius and all versus My Connection Communications System and all. And the second item is Magdalene Properties Group E versus Town of Mooresville. Additionally, under Economic Development, under GS 143-318.11A4, and finally, Personnel under GS 143-318.11A6. At this time, Joe will entertain a motion to go into closed session. Mr. Compton made the motion, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Giggler, discussion on the motion, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed, motion carries. So we'll go into closed session. Chair will call the meeting back to order, and Chair will recognize Commissioner Qualls.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to call for a public hearing on September 8th, 2020 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter that such may occur to consider an economic development agreement concerning the project company.
Commissioner Qualls has made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Houston. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, motion carries. Chair will recognize Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve a settlement with Holly Enterprises LLC to acquire right of way for $55,000 for the 801-150 project, and authorize the town manager to execute all documents necessary to acquire the right of way.
Commissioner West has made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dingler. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, motion carries. Commissioners, before we adjourn, remember that there are signs back here to promote the census. Mr. Ingram.
One other quick thing. Mr. Mayor, and that is you should have received a questionnaire related to our audit, and Deborah has reminded me that that is very crucial that we get that in ASAP so that we can get our audit done so that we can continue with our financing proposal. So I would be remiss if I did not mention that.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Chair recognizes Commissioner Compton.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. First, I just want to have our thoughts out for Commissioner Dingler. He's suffering from weak ear cartilage. He cannot keep his mask on without flying off like a slingshot. So he'll be undergoing therapy for weak ear cartilage. After that, he's keeping his thoughts and prayers, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Compton's made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Mayor, I'm going to second that so he can go forward.
Commissioner Ingram, second. All those in favor say aye.